we're going more on location. We're talking to a more diverse group of people, bringing the special needs community right to you. Hi, welcome to the WendyLyfe Show. Today is an exciting show because I have a dear friend here with me who's written a book on autism, Evan Roberts.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for coming. Now, how many books do you have total now?
So far now, we have 3 in the Kahari series and then this one on autism.
So this is the meaning of autism.
Mm-hmm.
I read this and I've never read a book written the way you've written it. You have, in the illustrations, you have little hints and then you ask questions. So how did you come about? What was your inspiration for this book?
So I have a nephew, little CJ. He is 7 years old, mm-hmm. and he and my son are about a year apart in age. And we watched them, grow up together and develop together. And we just noticed that, there were some things that were going on with CJ's development that were quite different. Even though children are different from one another, we wanted to see, what was it that was kind of holding him back from the development that we thought he should be in terms of speaking, in terms of playing with other children. And lo and behold, my sister decided to have him get looked at and determine that he had autism. And what I realized was there's a lot of kids who are on the spectrum, but kids don't know how to treat each other, in general.
Yeah, right.
But
regularly.
Specifically when we're talking about a kid that has some type of cognitive challenge that they're dealing with. So for me, I wanted to have a story that encapsulated this idea of friends working together, having a misunderstanding, but then coming to appreciate one another and having empathy towards somebody who's a little bit different than you, still wants to play, still wants to have fun, but just doesn't express him or herself the way you do.
Just have to learn a different way to communicate.
Yeah.
So now in this story, we use basketball. Is that a story from CJ's life, or is this something that you just thought would get people to understand because everyone kind of understands basketball?
Yeah, both actually. I wanted to have something that was really relatable, people could easily identify with. And I've seen him struggle a little bit with playing with toys, not just basketballs, but anything, trains, the whole nine. So I said, you know what, let's create a story around this idea of playing, sharing, with one another and being able to, be the type of person that recognizes, hey, I can't just hog the ball.
Yeah. Well, that's the average child though sometimes though, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, I just want to show the beauty. This is I love the illustration. Shout out to Miss Janine Carrington.
Yes, super talented. She did a great job.
Even on the t-shirts, it says things like teamwork is fun.
Yeah.
Was that your idea or did Janine?
So in every Kahari book, we have every story, we have put these messages, positive messages on the shirts of the characters. And it's an intentional part of what we're doing in terms of writing the book.
Now, what made you feel that there needed to be an activity book along with it?
A lot of my work, I'm an educator by day, and I know how important it is for parents to have resources, for their children, especially in the summertime, to have books and activities that they can do. So I said, you got a great story here, but after they've read the story, now what?
Right.
It's the end of it.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to have an extension to the story. So in the activity book, it gives parents, it gives educators 4 literacy strategies that they can implement with their child. So now we've read the story or we've looked at it. Now let's go back and let's incorporate some literacy to help reinforce the main ideas of the story.
I love how you say we. You don't just hand the child a book and say, read this and understand something. Yeah, it's a family effort.
Exactly. And parents have asked me, is this book intended for the child with autism, or is it intended for a person who is working with children, or maybe a child who doesn't have autism but just needs to know about it? And my response is always, it's both.
Yeah.
It's for that child who's on the spectrum to be able to see himself in the story. But it also is a story about children learning how to accept somebody who has some kind of cognitive challenge.
Different.
Yes.
So how has it been received? Because I loved it. I was like, this book is awesome.
Well, I'll tell you this. We do a lot to promote the book. I partner with a number of organizations. This past year, Deborah Vines has an organization called the Answer Inc. And she does a tremendous amount of advocacy work for children on the autism spectrum. So anyway, we had a conversation and I ended up doing her fundraiser event.
Wow.
And we brought the books there and people loved it. It was the only children's book, talked about autism, had black boys. It's like, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, it's been really well received.
So do you go around to schools and talk about this?
Yeah, so these books are intended more so for that 2nd to 3rd grade age range, and more so 3rd grade because of the content that I have in there. So I go around to a lot of schools and I talk to children, teachers about autism, about the importance of literacy, reading, about being a friend, about sharing. We put together presentations for all of the books that we have in the series as a way of just communicating, to our audience, how important it is to accept kids who are a little bit different, but also the whole literacy piece.
A few layers to it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I want to go back to when your CJ was diagnosed. How was that for your sister, for you, when you first heard it? How was that in the family? I
think it was very good in terms of what was done. So at 3, he was still not really verbal. And we could tell that some classic things like wanting to play by himself for extended periods of time, or being so laser focused on this one toy or this one thing. Intense. Yes. Yeah. And just knowing that. And so we knew that some things were going on, but I credit my sister for being proactive because I teach in education. I'm in the education field, and I know that sometimes parents are reluctant to want to have a test done that's going to say their child is this or that.
It's going to give them that label.
Exactly.
That'll stay with them throughout the school.
Exactly. And my sister didn't have that hang up. Nice. She didn't have, and we didn't have that hang up. It was like, no, if something's going on, we want to know early. Right. Because the earlier we know, the sooner we can get the services that he needs to help him progress through this time in his life. So
speak to, because I have 2 special needs children. And as the parent, I don't necessarily, I didn't in the past want to reach out to get others to help or to understand the diagnosis that my children had. What would you say to because you're the brother, you're the uncle, speak to that extended family member who's looking in like, what do I do? Because you jumped right in and were able, that's your educator, the educator in you.
I would say you have to look at yourself as a resource. And so I know that within the realm of teaching, where I'm at in my class and all that, there's a lot of people that I know, a lot of people. So I reached out to my friends because I'm not an expert on autism. I wasn't at the time and I'm not now, but I'm an advocate because I care about a young one who has it, and I care about all the other ones that have it as well. So I wanted to reach out to people who were in this space, who on a daily basis, understood the language, understood the ways in which treatment was supposed to happen, and get ideas from them. So that it wasn't coming from me, but I was like a vessel, where that information was being able to be transmitted through. And I think that was something that my sister appreciated because I connected her with all of these other people who are in this space. Yeah. And this is their life's work. This is what they've been doing for years. And so they had the credibility and the knowledge to be able to share.
That's awesome. So how is CJ now? He's 7.
Yeah, CJ's awesome. Like if you saw him today, you'd be like,
your whole face lit up.
Yeah, he is. I love being around him. My son is an only child. CJ is an only child, but they're like brothers. Yeah. They hang out all the time. They want to spend the night all the time. And my son now understands that he has to model a certain way with CJ. He has to help him out a little bit. As we go on, we went to the monster trucks not too long ago. Wow. And it was awesome.
Now, how was that? Because I don't know a lot about autism, but I understand like loud sounds.
Yeah. So we had, he had the earmuffs on. Okay. Oh yeah. The big ones. Yeah. But he loved it. He loved every opportunity to go out there and see the trucks and see them crash into each other, the whole nine. And what I want to do is help CJ to be able to have just those normal everyday experiences that every other child has as well. And not to have autism be something that stands in the way of him experiencing fun, and enjoying life with his family. Yeah.
And I'm sure that's a big help to your sister. Like, oh, you're going to take him? Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah. Big time. Yep.
So what's in the future for the Kahari series? Let's explain to the people what that means.
Yeah. So Kahari is my son's middle name. And the original motivation to even write a book, because I had no idea I was going to ever write a children's book. But a few years ago, a librarian laid it on my heart that books that have Black boys as the main characters are just hard to come by. They're hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
And when she said that to me, I was like, wow, there's a niche, that I could fill. And at the time I was writing for teenagers, but I basically did a total 180. I just said, you know what, I'm just going to switch gears here and I'm going to go ahead and come to this place where children need to see more of themselves represented in the stories.
Exactly.
And our first book was a rhyming story. This was book number 2. And then book number 3 is about a little Black girl who loves science. And every one of the books that we create, the whole purpose is to have books that have Black boys, Black girls, and then everyday things that we do in our life that matter. And it doesn't have to be a Black history book. It doesn't have to be a civil rights book. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but our kids get inundated with those types of stories and not just a regular story about a child being a child.
It looks like them.
Yes, doing what children do.
So are you planning to write any more on autism? Yeah,
well, what I was sharing with you earlier, we're going to take this and I want to make some updates to it. I want to put sight words in there. Sight words are big,
So explain what sight words are.
So these are basically words that, if you have a kindergarten or first grade or second grade, third grade, the teachers give them this pack of words that they want them to be able to recognize and know. And it helps them with their reading comprehension because they are words that you see over and over and over again in any type of text that you read for the most part. So I want to incorporate that into the book. I want to make a coloring book for this. That would be cool. I have a puzzle already that we've designed and made, but I want to get a bigger one, because the puzzle piece, as like Autism Speaks, has that blue puzzle piece that everybody recognizes. Puzzles are a big part of development. They help you with your cognition.
Yeah.
And my son and I, we love puzzles. Like we've done that forever. So just adding more resources that parents can actually use.
Okay. So tell me, because a lot of people hear autism, that seems to be the thing that's in now, that it's a growing, unfortunately, thing with children. Help people understand, because when we say spectrum, a lot of people don't understand what autism is and what does it mean by being on the spectrum. Can you help by what you know?
Yeah, so basically, we say autism, a child on the autism spectrum means that you have a child who is exhibiting some of the characteristic signs of autism. Some of those signs include having challenges understanding people social emotionally, maybe having repetitive behaviors, having a hard time communicating in terms of one's needs, and verbalizing that. Some children on the spectrum are nonverbal. Some of them are very high functioning. There's Asperger's, which I believe is not in the spectrum per se, but was at one point an aspect of autism, is a very high functioning form. So when we say spectrum, we're saying that you can't say this child has autism and this child has autism and they're exactly the same. No, they may have totally different ways in which the autism is expressed in that particular individual. So that's why the word spectrum is actually used.
Because we hear it and I don't think a lot of people understand what it is.
Yeah.
So how has...
And just in general, we're talking about a cognitive challenge where these children are not... They have, and by the way, a lot of people look at it as deficits, but there are also some things that they have that are absolute strengths. Like I've met children on the spectrum who maybe, maybe they couldn't read as accurately, but they could tell you every person in their family's birthday. Like they knew every person's middle name. Or just the concentration and the focus to be able to hang with a task and academically, that's very important. One of the challenges right now is that trying to get kids to stay focused.
Yeah, off the phones.
Yeah, off of the devices long enough to actually get something accomplished.
Yeah.
So I think when you look at it, I've never looked at CJ as having a deficit at all. This is a challenge. This is something that in addition to who he is, we have to work through and help him. But it's been great. And I think that more parents, if they look at it from that standpoint and they get the ABA therapy and the speech path and they start early with the resources, they will see a dramatic change in their child for the better.
So just like any other disability, the earlier you can get the help, the better the outcome. So how has CJ affected you as just a person? How has he enhanced your life?
Well, I would say the number one thing is he's taught me, more about patience and empathy than probably anybody else, because what I used to take for granted with my own son and what he could pick up or do or whatever, you realize that not every child is on the same developmental schedule. And that's okay. It's not a problem that this child is able to do X, Y, Z at this age and then this child isn't. And we have to get out of that mindset of comparing and rushing their development. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I would
especially
say,
with the sons being so close in age.
Yeah. And I would say that probably is the biggest thing that I've gained from him. It's just that appreciation that children develop at their own pace. We can't rush that. We can help facilitate it, but they're going to develop as they develop. And we just have to be there to provide the resources to help them.
That's awesome. I want to meet CJ. That sounds so cool. So those of us, because I've met some people with autism, some children, but I think with any other disability, someone on the outside who's never had experience with someone with a disability doesn't know how to approach, or you get the stares. And what I've talked about with other friends is like my children, you can see visibly there's something different. So you see automatically, but with a person with autism, you don't necessarily, they look normal. So how does one, because you see someone acting out, they'll, what is it called when they have the crisis?
Yeah, they have a crisis, a behavior.
Yeah, so they're in the store and grandma's like, see that baby, you need to, that child just need a little extra,
Right.
How do you understand how to approach someone with a child like that? Or you go to speak to a child and then you realize they're not speaking back. How does one do that?
Yeah, I would say it's a delicate, thing because you don't want to overstep your boundaries. And that's why when I was first learning about autism, like I went to workshops. I've gone to listen to other people speak on the topic, and I never once made it where I was the expert or even tried to be the expert on it because I'm not a doctor. Number one. I'm just an uncle who cares about a nephew who's on
gold.
And so I humbled myself. Hey, I don't have all the answers here. There are other people who have those answers. So I think that's part of it. It's looking at a child and saying, just because what I did with my child worked doesn't mean that applies to this child, or can just be easily translated over to this child. So a little bit of being humble, a little bit of understanding that you don't necessarily have all the answers. And then being able to say, okay, where are the resources though? So we've done the Autism Speaks walk. We've done, I've taken them and we've gone to the Chicagoland Autism event. Kim Johnson Evans, one of my friends that runs that. She does an excellent job. And I've consulted with her and I've talked to her about the IEP and what schools can do. Because I didn't know, and I didn't want to go, I didn't want to go into the classroom or go into the meeting, a meeting with my nephew and pretend like I know everything. It's like, no, I have to be able to rely on people who have actually been there and who have advocated for children on the spectrum all these years and who know the legalities behind it.
Yeah.
And I think if you humble yourself to understand that that's a process and you have to learn, there are some things that schools have to do. There are some things that they have to do and you can hold them accountable to those things. But there's a process to even doing that. And you can do it in a way where you alienate teachers, and you can do it in a way where the people on the team feel like, this person knows that we have our best intentions, even though we didn't execute whatever right.
Yeah.
It wasn't because we were trying to be the wrong type of people.
Man, this is a great conversation. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk to Uncle Evan. We'll be right back.
On the next WendyLyfe, Wendy talks to Mike Carmody, Executive Director of Opportunity Knox.
A lot of our program is based around choice. We develop our programming around what our warriors want, and we call the people we serve warriors.
That's awesome.
And so the idea of the warrior is that we all wake up and we have something we have to overcome.
Welcome back to the WendyLyfe. We're talking to Evan Roberts, educator, autism expert, kind of Uncle Evan, we call him. So let's talk more about these. Like you said, you had workshops that you went to. Is this something that parents can go to as well?
Yes. So there was a friend of mine in Milwaukee. She introduced me to a woman who was basically doing an autism awareness outreach for the community. And she had received a grant to host these community talks. And the purpose of the talks were to bring out professionals and resources. And they invited the community to come out to be able to just share in a conversation about how to better advocate for your child. What are some resources that you can utilize and leverage? So I went to that, and part of it was I was a speaker, so I presented, but the other part of it was I was there to learn. And hear from professionals and understand the challenges that they were facing, and also to hear from parents. So I think the biggest thing is, if you have a child on the spectrum, you don't want to seclude yourself and think that this is an isolated challenge. Immediately, you want to start reaching out to different groups. So the international organization is Autism Speaks. Everybody knows about them. But in any city, there are a lot of local organizations that you can reach out to. There are a number of autism walks. There are individuals who put on conferences about autism. So you want to reach out and find those types of resources and go there and meet those individuals. There are all types of ABA therapy organizations that are popping up all over.
Explain ABA, because some people may not know what ABA is.
Yeah, so it's applied behavioral analysis. And basically, it's a way of therapy that helps children on the spectrum it reinforces positive behaviors instead of reinforcing the negative, which is unfortunately what we do sometimes in the classroom.
Because teachers aren't always aware of how to handle that.
Exactly.
Or even recognize it.
Right. And so what those organizations have done is they have figured out specific types of therapies that can help children on the spectrum to advance faster, with their motor skills, with their speaking skills, with a whole host of skills that they focus on. So it's about reaching out to those places, and meeting individuals and talking to them. And that's all that we've done with CJ. That's all that we've been focused on doing, is learning as much as we can. And at home, what can we do to reinforce those behaviors that they are promoting at those different facilities. And so now with my nephew, for example, he has a therapist who comes to the home, works with him one-on-one, academically, socially, takes him out to the park so he can interact with children, and then does teaching and instruction when he's in that environment. Because as we all know, children one-on-one are not the same as children with their peer group.
Our average child is different.
Exactly. So she does a wonderful job of modeling for him, how he should handle things, or how he should express himself, things that he can say, how to verbalize what he's feeling. And that's the type of, I think, therapy and approach that parents should take when they have a child on the spectrum.
I never heard of that. That's a great idea, because they take them in different. And it's individual to them. That person knows that child, where they are on the spectrum, what needs they have. That's amazing. So now let's talk about your sister. How is she, other than you, like the support system around her?
Yeah, well, my mom, and dad are obviously there. So they've been a huge resource for her. And then I have two other brothers, and both of my brothers work in this space. They more so work in group homes. And so they have much older individuals who are on the spectrum.
Wow. So
she's able to get information from them as well. It's not just me. It's a bunch of us.
whole family.
Yeah, who are part of this. And so I think that group approach is really good, because then it doesn't become where it's burden on one person to actually provide all the resources. There's a lot of different ways that she can get information to help. And then we all have young children. So my brother has two daughters. They're young. One is right around CJ's age. So they all hang out, cousins, and that helps big time, because now the whole playing, the interaction, we can see the development. We can see what's happening with CJ. He's way, way better now than what he was, when he was 3 or 4.
I'm so sure, because he has that family unit, which is so important. So you said you go around to other schools and organizations. Do you specifically talk about autism, or do you talk about other things and then you include the autism?
Well, in my presentation, so I have a general presentation that I do for schools. And in every presentation, I mention every book in the Kahari series. So there's a segment where we talk about autism. We talk about what it is. And I share with the children why I decided to write a book about it. And then more importantly, how they can be a friend to somebody who has autism.
That's
and
cool.
so in every single presentation that it doesn't matter, where I go, it's part of what we do with the Kahari series. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome. So let's talk about some of the negative that comes with autism that people should know about, that people sometimes miss.
Well, I think, when you have a child that doesn't know how to verbalize his or her feelings, and so you see what we perceive as just a temper tantrum and acting out, but really it's not. There was a trigger, right? There was an antecedent, something happened that led to this behavior, and now the provider or the parent or whomever has to try to soothe and calm, the child down to come back to a normal or calm state. You see that, and so people make judgments, about child rearing or whatever it is. And it's like, no, you don't know.
You don't know.
You have an
That's
understanding.
what I'm saying.
So,
sometimes it's hard because the child looks physically normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cognitive delay.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you deal with
So
that?
I think you have to own your truth and know that this is not about your parenting style. You have to get away from allowing their judgment to impact you personally.
Yeah.
I think, and just know that this is, even when our children go out and then maybe you have a child that has autism and they act out. The tendency is to think that that's a reflection on your parent. No, it's definitely not. Children sometimes make poor choices and do things, and you're like, dude, I don't know where you got that from. Knock it off.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is coming to grips with that and not letting the pressure of people seeing this behavior trick you into thinking that you're less than a parent or that you are not the right. No, it has nothing to do with that. It has, that's why it's called a spectrum disorder. It's something that has to be worked through, and you need somebody who's trained to actually help you navigate those occurrences when they happen.
Yeah. So don't judge. Just, you never know the story of the person that you're looking at.
Exactly.
And none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
So
and taking out a belt and whooping a person doesn't
that's old school,
it's not going to solve anything. It's going to make it worse.
No, it does. And my normal child, it never worked for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't have any disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
I just had to figure out a different way to parent him and discipline him because that didn't work for him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's across the board with children. How can people get this book?
So right now, this the Kahari Discovers the Meaning of Autism is available on my website. So www.ejrbooks.com. I also have them available on Amazon as well. The website allows me to do a couple of things. When people order, I can personalize the book for the parents or whoever they want it to go to. But more important than that, I like to be able to reach out to people.
Yeah.
So if they order through the site, my website, then now I have contact information and I can follow up with you and maybe even provide some additional resources that you need on your journey with your young one.
And that's so important. And that's why we do this show, because we want to share the resources. Because you know some things that I don't know. I know some things you don't know. But together we know much more.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
I've been excited since you showed us this book. I was like, we got to be on the show. So thank you for taking the time to come.
Thank you.
I have to meet little CJ. I've met Uncle E, so we got to meet CJ. But thank you for coming. And thank you for joining us for this show. Stay tuned for other shows. We have some exciting guests with different ideas and different topics and different disabilities so that we can all become one community and help each other. So until next time, be blessed. Bye.